Hello everyone, welcome to sqadia.com. We're talking about gut tube and the body cavities. This is the third section in which we'll talk about the serous membranes. The serous membranes will be including the parietal and visceral layers, the dorsal mesentery and the ventral mesentery. So let's start with the parietal layer. So cells of the parietal layer of the lateral plate mesoderm become mesothelial. Before going into the detail of all this, let's revise what we've discussed till now. Initially, we had a single layer mesoderm. The mesoderm then divided into three layers. The first layer was paraxial mesoderm, the middle layer was intermediate mesoderm, and the third layer was lateral plate mesoderm. The paraxial mesoderm gave rise to somites, somitomeres. They arranged to form sclerotomes and dermomyotomes. These sclerotomes and dermomyotomes contributed skeletal, muscular, and bodily elements to the developing fetus. Now we have intermediate mesoderm. The intermediate mesoderm helps in the formation of urogenital system. Lastly, we had the lateral plate mesoderm. The lateral plate mesoderm further split into a dorsal portion, which was known as the parietal layer, and the ventral portion, which is known as the splanchnic layer. The parietal layer helped in the formation of lateral body wall folds, and visceral layer helped in the closure of the gut. Now we are talking about this parietal layer and how does it convert into a serous body membrane. So cells of the parietal layer of the lateral plate mesoderm, they become mesothelial. So from parietal layer of the serous membrane, they form the parietal layer. It lines the outside of the peritoneal cavity, the pleural cavity, and the pericardial cavity. So peritoneal cavity is peritoneum extends, peritoneum is the abdomen and pelvis region. The pleural region is the region of the lungs, and the pericardial cavity is the region of the heart. In this figure, you can clearly see when a fist, somebody is pushing a fist into a balloon, the balloon has not ruptured. So the outer wall of the balloon, this is the parietal serosa or the parietal layer of the serous membranes. This layer lines the outer wall of the peritoneal, pleural, and pericardial cavities. Now, the layer that is adjacent to the fist is known as the visceral layer of the parietal pleura, which will be taken up in detail in a little while. Now, this is the visceral layer. Cells of the visceral layer also become mesothelial. They form the visceral layer of the serous membrane. It closely adheres to the abdominal organs, the lungs, and the heart. Again, the same analogy. In this, again, a fist is being inserted into the balloon has not been ruptured. The outer layer that lines the body cavity is known as the parietal layer, and the inner layer is called the visceral layer. It tightly hugs or covers the organs. These organs include the abdominal organs, the lungs, and the heart. So now let's talk about the dorsal mesentery. This in blue is the ectodermal layer. This is the gut. This is the dorsal mesentery. This was the region of mesoderm. These are the neural crest cells. This is the notochord. This is the primitive body cavity. So let's take a look at what do we have in the dorsal mesentery. Visceral and parietal layers are continuous with each other as the dorsal mesentery. So the visceral layer, this was the visceral layer and this was the parietal layer. Both of them are continuous here where the dorsal mesentery is. So dorsal mesentery is formed by a combination of the visceral layer which is closely covering the gut, and the parietal layer, which is looping the body wall. It suspends the gut from the posterior body wall into the body cavity. It is the connection of the gut to the body cavity from where it is being suspended into the gut. So it extends continuously from the caudal limit of the foregut to the end of the hindgut. Now it is continuous, there are no breaks in the dorsal mesentery, and it extends from the caudal limit of the foregut. Again, what is the caudal limit? There's cranial is towards the head, caudal is towards the feet. If you divide foregut into cranial and caudal portions, you start from the caudal limit of the foregut to the end of the hindgut. Ventral mesentery. It's similar to the dorsal mesentery, but different in some respects. It exists only from caudal foregut to the upper portion of the duodenum. Again, from the caudal foregut, but dorsal mesentery extended to the hindgut. This only extends to the upper portion of the duodenum. This ventral mesentery, a small structure. It is formed by thinning of mesoderm of the septum transversum. Now, the origins are also different as well. Dorsal mesentery was formed by the lateral plate mesoderm, the two layers of the lateral plate mesoderm, the parietal and the visceral layer coming together. However, ventral mesentery is formed by the thinning of the mesoderm of septum transversum. What are mesenteries? Mesenteries are actually double layers of peritoneum that help in the suspension of an organ, as well as they provide a channel for the passage of blood, for the passage of lymph and the nerve vessels, the neurovascular bundles. So this section discussed how the layers of lateral plate mesoderm differentiated into peritoneal layers. Two layers of peritoneum were discussed: the parietal peritoneum, which hugs the body cavity, and the visceral peritoneum, which lies adjacent to the organs. In between the parietal and the visceral peritoneum, there is always peritoneal fluid, which is named according to the cavity that is in. That is, it can be pericardial fluid, peritoneal fluid, pleural fluid. A physiological quantity of it is always present. Then again, we have different anomalies in which this fluid can increase. Then we also discussed dorsal and ventral mesenteries. The origin of dorsal and ventral mesenteries were different. Dorsal mesentery came from the two layers of lateral plate mesoderm, the parietal and the visceral, coming together. It extended from the posterior, the caudal border of the foregut to the hindgut. As compared to that, the ventral mesentery originated from a different source. It was not the same as compared to the dorsal mesentery, which you have to keep in mind. It also extended from the caudal portion of foregut. However, it did not extend up to hindgut, but to the initial part of the duodenum. Again, what were mesenteries? Mesenteries were the parts, were the double layers of peritoneum that helped in carrying out of neurovascular bundles, blood vessels, veins, arteries, etc., and also provide a channel for nutrients and waste materials to enter and exit the developmental contents. Hope you like this lecture. It was as simple. Hope you like this section. It was as simple and easy as it could have been made. It is very important for you to remember these, as the clinical consequences which will be taken up in the next section are very important and always a part of your exam. For further details, keep watching sqadia.com.